when people say, what do you mean you don't eat vegetables? And what do you mean you don't need, carbs, because everybody's still on that. You need carbs. Um, there is such a thing as we've all heard of essential fatty acids. That's your fats. We've all heard of essential amino acids. That's your protein. But we've never heard of an essential carbohydrate, right? So it just, I mean, you don't need it, but people have a tough time because of that whole food pyramid that we've been stuck on for the last however many years, right?
Hi guys, welcome back to Carnivore Granny Chats. My voice is coming back slowly. We are here with Dr. Paola from Parker Integrative Health, and she's a chiropractor. She's going to talk a little bit about her practice and all of the information she's got going on in the brain. She's going to share some of it with us. So, Dr. Paola, how are you doing? And tell us a little bit about your story.
I'm doing great today. Thank you for asking. Well, I've been in the healthcare industry for about 25 years. And I'll tell you, as you said, I am a chiropractor. Before I started chiropractic school, when I showed up on day one, I was very unhealthy. I was 200 pounds, and I just ate garbage, not realizing it was really garbage, but it's what typically people would eat. And so within the first year of being in chiro school, I learned a little bit about nutrition, and then I started working out. And within a year, I actually lost like 40 pounds, which is great. But and for me personally, it's been every day is a new journey. I, as most girls, some guys too, but girls growing up, not comfortable with the way we look ever. And so trying different diets, growing up. Okay, I did for a little while, I was vegan, raw vegan. And, I felt pretty good while I did it. I only did it for 3 weeks though, and my body was just craving other stuff. I did keto for a while. And so my husband and I actually did keto together. And he was losing weight. He was feeling great, all the good things, and I was gaining weight, and I was being so strict, and I wasn't feeling great, but through my years of healthcare, I learned, me personally, I did my own genetics, and I found out that I don't make enough bile to break down fat. So, and then my mother, she ended up having her gallbladder removed, and then that led to fatty liver disease and so forth. So, it's been a journey. I've tried just about everything. I even tried HCG years ago. So, you pretty much starve yourself when you do that, and you got to inject yourself all the time too. And yes, I lost weight, but I was starving, and it came back as well. Long story short, because we tend to do this sort of stuff. I try so many different things to lose weight instead of like changing the actual lifestyle. And so, because of all that, having insulin resistance was my biggest issue. I was running 5 miles a day, 5 days a week after I had my first child, and I wasn't losing any weight, And so, come around, and it was actually my daughter who really provoked me to really start pushing into carnivore. Um, she was only 14, and the whole cycle thing starts, and she was starting to get fatigued and tired, and then we're like, okay, well, you're probably anemic, and we checked it out, and yes, she was anemic. And we started her on this great supplement to help with that. But I always craved red meat, like always. And she just one day she said, and we've been teaching them since they were little, you don't want to eat these foods, you don't want to eat these foods. But she came to me and said, you know what, I really want to try carnivore. I want to just, get rid of, for a 14-year-old girl to say that, that's a big deal. And so the whole family did it for about a month to start, like really strict. And me and my daughter felt phenomenal. My son felt really great on it. But interestingly enough, my husband, who does better on keto, he needs more of a keto flex kind of thing. So carnivore, yes, but he needs more of that healthy fat as well. So that's kind of how I came about that. um, for the most part, me and my daughter still, we eat the majority of what we eat. 90% is carnivore. And then, we still stay away from grains pretty much. But once in a while, because she's 15, I'm like, if you want something gluten free, it's totally fine, and she's great about that. So, um, in our practice, as I mentioned, we started as a chiropractor, and within 3, 4 years, we noticed that people just keep coming in with the same things, and that's when we started delving into nutrition as well. And I think I tell people all the time, no matter what your health issue is, you got to start with the gut, and you got to start with your diet and your lifestyle. So yeah. So, and we just do so many different things in the office. But I always go back the very first thing, and that's not on me, that's on you. You have to do this, right? So, and the people who do change their diet get the best results.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so
Well,
I blab a lot. I think I vomited on you.
I no, that's perfect. Yeah. So how do when your patients come in and they're exhibiting some pain or something, and you bring up gut issues, what's their reaction
Um,
usually?
a lot of people are hesitant and reluctant to make changes because you're completely changing their life. Some people are like, when you explain leaky gut to them and gut health in general and the connection between the brain and the gut, um, they get a glimpse of it and they're like, okay, they're a little bit more open to it. Um, and then, and I tell them, just start. Generally, I'll start people because carnivore's difficult for some people to go cold turkey. And so I usually tell them, at least start paleo. So at least start getting rid of the grains, the sugars, all the artificial foods. Start there. And that's generally everybody, you got to meet them where they're at, right? Some people are not ready or willing, or they still have it in their mindset that, oh my god, meat is bad, it's going to kill me, so it's a process, but we try to meet them where they're at and just start with baby steps.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So they tend to take it pretty well. That's good. And that trust between you and the patient is also super important as well. That they trust that the information you're giving them is correct, and they're going to make these huge changes.
Right, and I'll tell you, that's something that anything that we have in our office I've tried myself, because I want to know what it feels like, I want to know how it helps, is there anything negative to it, so that I can answer those questions for them as well. um, I'll tell you, I'm not strict to carny all the time. I am not, I'll probably go like carny. I'll probably go 2, 3 weeks at a time, and then I never eat. I'll say 99% of the time I don't eat grains or anything like that. But paleo is kind of like my set point, and then I'll cycle with like carnivore. Um, Keto's too hard for my gallbladder.
Yeah.
So yeah. So yeah, I think there most people are, if you explain to them why and show them the connection, they're like, well, I can at least try. And that's all I tell people is just try, and start with, like, even if it's one day a week, start somewhere, and we can get better and better as we move along. Again, I've been on this journey for 25 years, and I think I finally figured it out for myself, and everybody's a little bit different. Again, my daughter and I do great on carney. I think my son does pretty good too because he's a teenage boy. Um, but he likes his grains too. So, and then again, my husband, he goes back and forth, So, yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. That, yeah, I want to be a fly on the wall, when you bring it up to like their facial expressions. I love that instant, like, oh, that could be it, the light bulb moment.
Yeah. And it is, and that's what I tell people. It's like, I could do all kinds of stuff that's going to help you.
Mhm.
But if you really want true health, it's got to start with that diet, you know? And it's funny, I'll tell people, you know, they'll say, I don't eat a whole lot of vegetables. And I tell them all the time, vegetables are overrated, you know? So then we can get into the whole oxalates, you know, and why they're, and the lectins and all that sort of stuff. And then they're like, oh, that makes sense, you know? So, yeah,
That's great.
yeah,
And then are you then able to like transition, some patients off medications as needed?
yeah. So, as a chiropractor, we're not allowed to take people off medications, but I advise them and I tell them, look, if you were my sister, you were my mom, I would talk with your physician and say, hey, I want to start getting off this sort of stuff. You know, I have a young boy. I do a lot of different things in the office. I do brain training, so I do neurofeedback. And I had a young boy, he's 14 years old, and he went through my neurofeedback program. And his mom, I just saw her a couple days ago, and she said, you know, he's off all his medication, right? And I was like, actually, I didn't know that. And yay, that makes me so happy. So that's the goal, you know. You have to be careful when you say that. But the goal is to get people healthy enough to not need those medications, you know. And I've been trying to work with my dad. They're up in Canada. He's traditional Italian, you know, and his bread and pasta and all the stuff. Um, he's making some tweaks, which is good, but you know, kids don't listen to their parents, and parents don't listen to their kids. So, like, you just got to show them. And I
Yeah.
think you show them, like, look at how good I feel. Look, I don't have pain. You know, I think if they can see that, then they're a little bit more willing to make some changes.
Yeah, I'm going through the same.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
I get that. Well, if I had a serious health condition, I would consider it. But you do have, somewhat serious health conditions at 80 years old. So, but
Absolutely.
I heard one person call it the diaper effect. Like if somebody's changed your diaper, they won't take advice from you or something.
Ah, okay. I can see that. Yeah. I
Yeah.
checked
So,
her.
yeah. So once I started thinking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I can see that. So maybe that's it. I don't know, but hopefully they, just see the changes and, even with their grandkids doing it too, that's got to be pretty inspiring for a kid to want to do carnivore.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, my daughter just, you know, and again, we've been educating them their whole lives about, you know, this is, you don't eat this, you don't eat that. It's funny when my daughter was 3, sorry, I tell a lot of stories too, but when she was around 3.5 years old, she was at this preschool and she had this little friend. It was like her bestie. And I mean, my children have never had McDonald's. And they're 15 and almost 17. And so we've always said, don't eat that stuff. It's terrible. It's garbage, blah, blah, blah. Well, so this little girl, her friend, her mother brings in McDonald's for her for lunch. And Lila, who's 3.5, no filter, she says, oh my God, you're going to die. You can't eat that food. And then when she told me, I was like, oh man, her mother must have been so upset. Little kids.
It's true.
They speak the truth, you know?
They do. They do. Our granddaughter's 3 and she just turned 3. And so it's funny because she'll eat whatever we eat, wherever she's at, that's what she eats. And so when she's with us, she just happens to eat eggs and bacon. I have her other food here and I will fix it for her, but
Yeah.
she won't eat it. She'll just eat eggs and bacon with us. And so I'm waiting for her to have that capacity to ask, and I think that'll be really interesting because her parents eat some fairly healthy. They don't eat, a lot of fast food and they don't eat out a lot, but still not carnivore. So I'm curious to see how that kind of plays out as she ages.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So
I'd say like now that my daughter's mainly carnivore, you know, she's stronger. She can run farther. She's been training, you know. It's been great, like so good. And she doesn't get all phlegmy like she used to get, you know, so many things, so much better. And she
yeah.
actually when she eats certain foods that are not carnivore, instantly it's like her cheeks go red. And that's, it's not an allergy, but it's definitely a sensitivity, right?
For sure, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, and I like with our granddaughter, I notice, we when she was about, I want to say 2, probably just turning 2, she had major attitude, hitting, biting, scratching. And I was a special ed preschool teacher and a child development specialist. So daughter calls, what's going on? How can I fix this? And I'm like, well, let's look at her diet. And she had a little tiny speech delay, not bad, but frustrating for her because her brain works really fast. She has
Yeah.
a photographic memory, so her brain works like super fast. So it was frustrating for her not to be able to get the words out. So I'm like, well, it could be that, and let's look at her diet. What are you feeding her? Well, she's eating this, and fruit snacks. I'm like, let's cut out the red dye.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
put that red dye and see what happens. And so she immediately cut out the red dye. Overnight, it was an attitude change. Like
Wow.
she stopped biting, scratching, hitting, all of that stuff. So it's like an immediate for these kids. It's just,
Right.
and they know, like, just naturally I want meat. I remember as a kid, all I wanted was steak.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted. And my parents were like, oh, that's expensive. We're having chicken.
Yeah.
We grew up hating chicken.
I
So
know.
kids just know, and I find that incredible. Have you seen that a lot? Like, raising your kids, like, what were their first foods? I'm curious. Like, how was it with
Well,
them?
they were breastfed strictly to 8 months. That's all. That's when I dried up, if you will. And then avocado was actually their first food. So that was probably around 6, 7 months, just because it was soft. Um, we did a lot of healthy fats when they were younger. They're easier my daughter actually didn't get her first tooth until she was 14 months old. Um, and then, so we did a lot of healthy fats, mainly eggs, some sweet potatoes. And then, like I said, the, um, the avocados were huge, huge. And as I said, I've learned so much more. Every day I learn a little bit more, and my kids joke with me all the time. It's like, oh, what's mom's going to talk about today? Like, oh, what'd she read today? Because, at one point, a long time ago, when I started Cairo school, I thought soy was good for you. And I think a lot of people did, and that I quickly realized probably maybe about 18, 19 years ago so my kids never experienced any soy, which is good. But there's so many things like, eat your vegetables. And up until 4 or 5 years ago, I'd say, like, I said, yeah, eat your vegetables. But now I say they're overrated. Same with almond milk came out, right? And I knew a lot of kiddos that have developmental disorders, that dairy can be harmful for them. And now I know, well, there's A2 milk, and there's raw milk that you can get. And oh, I will take that back. I did start giving them goat milk when they were younger as well. Up until probably maybe 2 years old, they did get raw goat milk, which was good. But again, more research comes out. You read, good research is coming out as well. It's not one group has control over all the nutritional, studies, which is great because that's kind of what it seemed like it was before. So as I said, like almond milk, for a while, I thought, okay, let's try that. And then the lectins and how it's processed and all this other stuff. And it's like, well, I'm not doing that anymore. So I feel like every day learning a little bit more and just refining it, getting better and better and better. My hope is that, I can sit down with someone and say, this is what you should start. This is where you should, instead of this 25-year journey that I've been on, which it taught me a lot, but I'd like to save them some of that time, right? And, oh, this didn't work well for me and so forth.
Yeah, yeah, that's the way I feel too. Like, I've only been at it 2 years on carnivore almost, but I've been researching it for years before that. So I've been on this 4 or 5 year kind of learning process, and I'm just like, let me narrow it down for you. Let me let me help you out. But I'm no expert. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist with a degree or anything like that.
But you're
So,
living it.
but I'm living it, and it's funny because it hits one of two ways. Either it's like, wow, you're such an inspiration, or you're an anomaly and you're gonna die. Like
And yeah.
I was just told the other day that meat is super inflammatory and my pain's going to come back. I'm like, well, then why did it leave to begin with? Like,
Yeah.
So
You're
it just,
it's not going to come back anyway. But that's the thing too. Like all the studies that all these people are referencing, it's also on conventional icky meat. So if some people do have some of these reactions, well, you need to refine it a little more and get the grass-fed stuff. We know that grass-fed gives you more omega-3s, which is I know you know this, anti-inflammatory, whereas conventional is more omega-6 and 9. There's a clear-cut difference. So, yeah.
so what advice would you have? I know I get this a lot, like, oh, carnivore is so expensive. And, and like, we're in like, I don't know if we're in like a transition. My husband was laid off and we're selling the house and we're going to be traveling full time. And so, we're trying to save as much money as possible. And so we've been eating a lot of ground beef, to be honest, and
Yeah.
not very much steak, and just
Nothing wrong with that.
and
Yeah.
I can eat for $3 a day and nobody believes me. So what do you have advice that you give your patients? Like, they say, oh, I can't afford, that kind of grocery bill. What do you tell them?
Well, in Colorado, which is where I'm at, there's so many places that offer grass-fed beef by you can get a quarter cow, a half cow, whatever. We've been doing that, gosh, from the same lady for the last 13 years. I get a quarter cow, and it brings the cost down substantially. I'd say probably about $6 a pound. And so that includes your steaks, your roasts, your ground beef. If you want I like the soup bones too, because I'm gonna make a broth out of it. So that's another way too. And really, like some of the worst part of the animal has some of the best nutrition in it, right? So I think that's the best way to do it. Yes, you're gonna pay up front a lot more than you're used to, but get a little freezer and it's going to save you so much money in the long run. I'm big ground beef that's easy too, right? I mean, you could just eat it plain or throw a couple eggs in there. So we do a ton of that, and I recommend a lot of that. I also it's not strict carnivore, but it's pretty darn close. Have you heard of the Kevin's Paleo? That brand? It's a great brand. And they have it at Costco. They also have like King Supers and I think even Walmart carries it. But it's he cooks everything. I'm assuming it's a he with the name Kevin, but can't assume anymore. So anyway, they cook the protein, and it's always protein. There's beef, there's some pork, and then there's chicken as well. But they'll cook it sous vide. And I don't know if you know what that is. It's basically it's cooked in its own juices, right? And then it stays in that little packet. And they usually have like a paleo type of sauce that goes with it. It's so easy. You strain the water, you saute, the meat because it's already cooked, and then you add whatever you want. If you want some vegetables, like I still eat broccoli on occasion, and then you put that sauce on it. And for my son who still likes rice, I'll just cook some rice separately, and then he could put that on top of the rice. So it's quick and it's easy. And sometimes when you just don't have time to cook, they also stay in your refrigerator for a long time, like months, which is great. And they don't use any soy, any grains, and it's completely paleo. You don't have to use the sauce, but it makes it taste a little better. so I always recommend that company as well to use. So
great. I'll try to find their website or something and put it down below for everybody.
Yeah.
That's cool. I haven't seen that, but literally I go to Costco and it's like the meat counter
Yep.
You know, the eggs and the bacon and the butter, and I'm out. You know, like I
Well,
don't.
they also have the buffalo brats or elk brats as well. Like I'll get some of those. I get a ton of like their different sausages, the Teton beef sausages or dogs, whatever you want to call them. We get a ton of that too for like quick, fast, just cook it up. Um, I got actually this past weekend. They have that thinly sliced beef at Costco, the sirloin that's thinly sliced, and so I'll just marinate that in coconut aminos because it's like soy sauce, right? And then I'll put in a little bit of tapioca flour, just a dusting of it. And tapioca flour is right from a root plant, so it's not enough to really hurt you any. Um, and then I'll just throw that on the griddle and cook it up. And then you have this sack of meat, that you can just eat. Or, again, you can mix it with something else. Like my son loves his rice. So we always have rice for him on that. But it's kind of nice to have that. I do prep on the weekend too. Like I cooked a bunch of chicken the other day. And so I'll have it for the week. So I think prepping just a few hours a week will make you more successful as well.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure. How about cravings? What do you suggest for cravings? Everybody has like a different suggestion, so I'm
Yeah.
always.
So I think after you do it for a while, you don't have cravings necessarily. I will tell there's this phenomenal, okay, so we all know how good coconut oil is for us, right? Antiviral, antifungal, antibacterial. Well, um, they make this product, it's called lauricidin. Do I have it? I don't have it here. Um, and it's basically monolauric acid, which is the good part of coconut oil. And they put it in these tiny little pellets. And you just, half a scoop in the morning, half a scoop in the evening. And I've had so many people that, they have to have something sweet all the time, right? That's usually candida. That's yeast infestation of the body that lives and craves sugar.
Mm.
So I've had so many people that they started that and they say it completely cuts their cravings for sugar.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's something I haven't heard. See, you learn something every time you ask somebody because
Yeah.
it's something different.
You could do 2 tablespoons of coconut, but not for me. It's so much easier to just do the little pellets and anybody can swallow them. You don't chew them, you swallow them. Because on the bottle in big bold, it says do not chew. So, me being who I am, I gotta chew it. I gotta see how bad it is. And it was awful. It's like wax in your mouth. It's terrible. Yes, that's who I am. I'm going to try it. They say no. I'm going to say yes.
You're pushing the button, aren't you?
I
You're
do. I just cause like I'm like, how bad can it be? It's bad. It's bad. But then I can tell people, do not chew it. So, but that stuff is really, really great. My daughter said the same thing. Like when she takes it, she doesn't have cravings. If you really have to have something sweet, there are so many the chaffle, so many things that you can make. I do like baked apples, and yes, I know there's sugar, but hear me out. When you peel it, okay, and you bake it with coconut oil and cinnamon, it actually negates a lot of the sugar because you're cooking it in coconut oil, which helps with that whole blood sugar spike. And cinnamon's another one that's actually really good with blood sugar spikes. Now you don't want to eat a whole pot of them, but just for like a little treat, it's actually pretty good. Um, that's also with rice. And I can't remember, it may have been, I know we probably all follow the same people. I think it was either Brecca or Huberman that was talking about I think it was Brecca, cooking your rice in coconut oil. Because again, it takes a lot of that starch out and that influence on your blood sugar and the whole insulin resistance thing. So I'm not as strict, obviously, as you probably are. Um, but I go through cycles of it. Like I might be super strict for a month and then I'm going to be like 90% sort of deal. But it's what works for me.
exactly, and I think that's what everybody has to do. I'm not, I don't want to be the food police or whatever. I definitely have a carnivore ice cream sweet tooth, and I have been enjoying a glass of milk before bed. And I will admit to it, I have been whole milk
That's
because
okay. It's whole milk.
I was there at the store and it looked good.
Yeah. And it's
But
not going to mess with your blood sugar, you know.
no,
So,
I actually it helps me sleep a lot better because I mean before carnivore I hardly ever slept, and with carnivore I do sleep, but I have a back injury, so I have a hard time getting comfortable, so I toss and turn a lot.
yeah.
And so I think that's why I don't sleep well. But if I have that glass of milk, and when I talk carnivore ice cream, it's like a half a cup, like it's so tiny, it's like three
Yeah.
bites, but it's enough to like help, I guess, get me in that deep sleep somehow. I don't know.
Well, it makes sense. So a lot of people, I mean, nowadays everybody has adrenal fatigue or adrenal exhaustion, right? Like, and that's because your adrenals are those tiny little stress organs that sit on your kidneys, and they're tiny. And today's stress level is not what it's supposed to be. It's, 100 times what it was 30, 40 years ago. So, and we could talk about EMFs, all the stuff that stresses our bodies, right? So in the middle of the night, if you wake up, a lot of times it's because your blood sugar is tanking, and your adrenals are saying, hey, I feel like I'm dying. So it wakes you up. So the food actually, especially if it's a healthy fat like milk or a protein, um, it's going to stop that spike in the blood sugar from going up and down. I actually, this is something I recommend people get as well, the constant glucose monitors. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a company called Lingo. You could just order it. You don't need to order it through a doctor. Lingo. And it was enlightening for me. So I had it on, and I was eating how I normally eat, and um, everything's good. I'm staying between the 70 and 100 blood sugar level, which is perfect. Well, one day, my son didn't eat his gluten-free piece of toast, one slice of toast, and I'm like, I can't throw it away. I'm going to eat it. So I ate it, and it spiked my blood sugar. One slice of toast, 50 points. 50 points. So I think for a lot of people, like to kind of tailor the carnivore for yourself, getting one of those is really enlightening, because you can see how other foods affect you. Like when you're eating fats and protein, it's pretty much staying like this. But when you're eating anything else than that, it's like that. And what I tell people is like, that is like, this is chaos, blood sugar, right? That's chaos in your brain too, right? Because every single one of those cells need a stable supply of glucose. When I first got that CGM, I used to get up, for a little bit in the middle of the night. And one night, I was like, I woke up and I'm like, what the heck? The next morning, I checked my blood sugar and it had dropped to 55, which is low, very low. But that's why I woke up. So I feel like it's enlightening that way too, for people to say, if I had a good night's sleep, um, look back to see what your blood sugar was like during the day and the night. Look back to see what you ate, because it has such an influence on you. And then you can make the right decisions. Like, I know I can't eat that, it keeps me up all night. I know I can't drink anymore, and I haven't in a number of years. It always made me stay awake. You know how people pass out? Not me. Like, I was like, so, and that's just wasted calories and no nutritional value to that. I don't remember who said it. I'm sure you've heard this before. When people say, what do you mean you don't eat vegetables? And what do you mean you don't need, carbs, because everybody's still on that. You need carbs. Um, there is such a thing as, we've all heard of essential fatty acids. That's your fats. We've all heard of essential amino acids. That's your protein. But we've never heard of an essential carbohydrate, right? So it just, I mean, you don't need it, but people have a tough time because of that whole food pyramid that we've been stuck on for the last however many years, right?
Yes, thank you, Kellogg and LNG.
Yeah, wow, right? Crazy.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, what a change in the history just from that one event. Like how much it changed the world.
Right. Yeah,
That,
and that study that was saying that fat caused heart disease, and which we all
Yeah.
know that's not the case,
All bought off. All bought off.
But
Yeah.
so many people still believe that,
Mhm.
sad.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't have a PCP doctor, a regular doctor. Yeah, PCP. Is that? Yeah, primary care.
Yep.
And, and so because I just kind of did my own thing even before carnivore, took myself off medications and stuff, did it myself. And I wanted to get some blood work done. So you got to go to the doctor to get the blood work. So I go in, and she was like, "Oh, you're my second carnivore patient," because I was ready for a fight, an argument.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was cool. I go and get my blood work, come back for the reading, and she having done some research on carnivore and asked me about the cholesterol, the high cholesterol thing. And I explained to her about the high cholesterol myth and how it was debunked back in the 70s and this and that. She goes, "Okay, that's it. I'm going carnivore. You convinced me." She goes, "Between your and the fact, the whole high cholesterol myth," she goes, "I'm going." So I'm so anxious. Like, I don't want to go back to the doctor, but I'm kind of anxious. I just want to make an appointment just so I could be like, "Hey, how you doing?"
Yeah, exactly. To see how she's doing it. And ideally she's recommending it to other people,
I hope so. I really hope so.
I think there's, medical doctors in this country are at a disadvantage. For, the main reason why is I'm not going to get political, but who funds pharma or who funds medical schools? We know it's pharma. So they get to dictate what you learn. And unfortunately, most medical doctors get 1 hour of nutrition in school. So how are you going to make a good decision? How are you going to say, like, this will help you, this will help save you, this will help with your pain, if you're never even taught that, to even think that way? And on top of that, they're, when they're in medical school, they're basically told, look, if you don't do this, this, and this, when you see these numbers, you could be sued. So they're told that, you could lose your license if you don't do how we tell you to do it. Whereas completely different philosophy, obviously, for chiropractic, for naturopathic physicians, that side of the world, right? Whereas we are taught nutrition and to think critically, and if not everything works for everybody, it doesn't. But figuring out what does work, and it has to be the gut. Like, anybody that comes in here, I'm like, you got to address your gut first. Have to. So yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, goodness, I've kept you so long. Thank you
Oh,
so
sorry.
much.
I can talk forever.
I know I could chat with you forever. I just noticed the time, like, oh my goodness, I know you're busy and I gotta let
I know
you go.
you're busy too.
It's insanity right now, but we're plugging along. Thank goodness for meat and the clear mind. I can do everything I want to do.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on and joining the new carnivore community group.
Connections. Yeah.
More connections. Thank you. Too many words going on in there. And yeah, I'm super excited for this new group and to see, how it grows and blossoms,
Yeah, I'm super excited. To your point, we do a lot of functional medicine. So that's something that we're offering that we can easily do telehealth wise, right? Just order blood work, whatever you need. Like, I have a set that I like to run on pretty much everybody, and that includes hormones. But anything that they need run, we can run it for them. So
great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for coming on. It was so great to meet you. I hope we get to chat again soon.
I hope so too. Thank you.
I have a lot more to chat about.
I know. Yeah, easily we could. Well, yeah. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much. And we'll see you guys again soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.